Welcome back to the deep dive. This time, we're going deep into some JFK assassination research.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mostly from Fair Play magazine. Think like independent investigations, hidden details in those iconic photos, and even a
Uh-huh.
little ancient wisdom. You've sent a bunch of articles, research notes, even book excerpts. Let's see what we can dig up.
What strikes me about all this is that it doesn't just repeat the same old JFK theories.
Yeah.
We're talking analysis of the Warren Commission report,
Right.
firsthand accounts from researchers and investigators, even a comparison to the Lincoln assassination. It's a multi-layered approach.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what we find.
Okay, I have to admit, the mystery man in the Moorman photo, that's what hooked me right away.
Oh, yeah.
That image, taken right at the moment of JFK's fatal shot, I mean, it's seared into our collective memory, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's this detail people often overlook.
Oh, really? What's that?
Yeah. Well, researcher Raymond Marcus calls him hashtag 5-man, and he thinks he's holding a weapon. And it's fascinating. This detail hasn't really gotten the attention it deserves. It's like a whisper that gets lost in the noise of all the big conspiracy theories.
Like someone didn't want us to hear it, maybe.
Right. I mean, Marcus had 12 photo experts look at that Moorman photo.
Wow.
And 10 of them said that's a human figure, possibly holding something straight.
Really?
10 out of 12?
Yeah.
Why isn't this front page news?
Well, that's where things get murky.
Right.
The Fair Play articles hint at possible suppression. Apparently, a CBS producer saw the hashtag 5-man image and even acknowledged it. But the segment never aired. Then there's this cryptic comment from Wesley Labler, he's one of the Warren Commission attorneys, to Marcus. Sometimes we get caught up in things that are bigger than we are.
Ooh, that's chilling.
It is.
Makes you wonder what he knew, right? Reminds me of that saying, the truth is out there, but maybe it's more like the truth is buried under layers of, secrecy and power plays. Speaking of hidden truths, this brings us to Dr. E. Martin Schatz and his speech, The Waters of Knowledge. He uses a 9th century Sufi tale to explain how people react to the JFK assassination.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, this Sufi tale.
Yeah.
When the waters were changed, it's brilliant for understanding the psychology of denial.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's about a king who secretly changes the water supply to this sweet, addictive liquid. Everyone drinks it,
Okay.
except a few who refuse, knowing it's not real water. These few, they're seen as crazy outcasts.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Schatz suggests that accepting the Warren report, despite its flaws, is like drinking from the king's well. It's easier to accept the comfortable lie than face the unsettling truth.
Yeah, I get it. Sometimes the truth is too much to handle.
Right.
It's easier to just believe the official story, even if it doesn't quite add up.
But then, as Schatz says, we're just perpetuating the cover-up by drinking the waters of uncertainty. Does this happen in other areas of life, too? I mean, do we do this in other ways?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This psychology of denial, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Personal relationships, how we consume news, how we deal with uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the world around us. The JFK assassination is just a dramatic example, I think.
Right. Okay, so Schatz doesn't mince words when it comes to the Warren Commission report.
Yeah.
He just calls it demonstrably false. He even points to things like the magic bullet trajectory, that one bullet supposedly zigzagging through both JFK and Governor Connolly.
Oh, right.
And what Schatz highlights is that the bullet's supposed path, it's physically impossible given the evidence.
Yeah.
He also critiques the explanation for the jacket hole. The location, it doesn't match the Warren Commission's claim that the bullet entered JFK's back at a downward angle. It's like they had to force the evidence to fit their narrative.
Like they were trying to make us drink from that well of uncertainty.
Right. It's making me question everything I thought I knew about this case.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
This theme of official narratives connects us to another thread in our deep dive. A 1994 interview with Gaetan Fonzi. He was an investigator for the House Select Committee on Assassinations.
Oh, right. Fonzie, yeah.
And what sets him apart is his meticulous approach.
Okay.
He wasn't chasing sensational theories. He was focused on corroborated details, evidence that stands up to scrutiny.
Makes sense.
He even tried to disprove some of the claims made by key witness Jose Veciana.
Oh, really? Why would he do that?
That seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But by trying to debunk Veciana's claims, he actually ended up strengthening Veciana's overall credibility.
Oh, I see.
It shows he wasn't just cherry-picking evidence, he was genuinely seeking the truth.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then there's this anecdote Fonzie shares about Veciana's wife. She spontaneously confirmed a payoff from someone called Maurice Bishop. Fonzie wasn't even asking about that. It just popped out, adding this layer of authenticity to Vecchiana's whole story.
That's a classic example of those seemingly insignificant details that are actually super revealing.
Yeah.
It reminds us to pay attention to the nuances, the things people might overlook.
Fonzie's investigations were like peeling back layers of an onion. He looked into figures like David Atlee Phillips, Frank Sturgis, and Mitch Warbell, uncovering this tangled web of connections and covert operations.
Like stepping into a spy thriller with real-life stakes.
Okay, so just as we're starting to get our heads around the JFK assassination, Fair Play throws us a curveball. A parallel to the Lincoln assassination.
No way.
Yeah. They cite Theodore Roscoe's book, The Web of Conspiracy, which delves into Lincoln's death. Roscoe argues that, just like the JFK case, suppressed evidence and censorship created a distorted historical narrative.
Wow.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are there echoes of the past in the present? Are we still grappling with the same issues of government secrecy and potential cover-ups?
It's mind-blowing, really. It makes you question how much of history is shaped by those in power and what truths might still be hidden.
Right. But before we get too lost in the big picture, let's zoom in on some of the specifics Fonzie uncovered. This is where things get really interesting.
I'm ready. Let's do it. So let's dive into Fonzie's investigation of David Atlee Phillips.
Okay.
He was a high-ranking CIA officer back then,
Right.
deeply involved in all those anti-Castro operations.
Right.
And Fonzie seems to suggest a link between Phillips and this mysterious Maurice Bishop. Remember, Vecchiana mentioned him as his CIA contact.
Right, yeah.
Fonzie found that Vecchiana actually identified Phillips as Maurice Bishop from a photo lineup. Now, Phillips denied any involvement with Vecchiana or the JFK assassination, but here's the catch. Fonzie uncovered that Phillips had a history of using aliases. Not just one or two, but a whole bunch.
Like he was living multiple lives.
Exactly. He was also known to compartmentalize his operations, meaning he kept different parts of his work completely separate, even from his colleagues.
So, it's like trying to track a ghost. If he was so good at hiding his tracks, how could anyone possibly prove or disprove Vecchiana's claims?
It makes you wonder if Phillips's denials were just another layer of deception, right?
Right.
It reminds me of that saying, it's not the lie that gets you in trouble, it's the explanation.
Right.
And Phillips's refusal to directly address the allegations, it just adds to the suspicion.
Right. Fonzie even mentions an incident where Phillips was confronted about his alleged involvement with Vecchiana. It was during a conference, and guess what? Phillips dodged the question. It's almost as if he was afraid of what might unravel if he said too much.
Yeah, like he was hiding something.
You'd think if you were innocent, you'd welcome the opportunity to clear your name.
Right.
Instead, it feels like Phillips was trying to silence Fonzie, to shut down any further investigation into his activities.
It definitely raises questions about what he might have been trying to protect.
Yeah.
Was it his reputation, or was there something more at stake?
Right.
And speaking of individuals with questionable pasts, Fonzie's research takes us into the world of Frank Sturgis.
Oh, yeah, Frank Sturgis.
A former CIA operative, no stranger to covert operations.
Yeah, from what I read, Sturgis was involved in some pretty wild stuff.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Including the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Wow.
He even claimed to have information about the JFK assassination, but his stories were all over the place.
Sturgis was a master of disinformation. He'd say one thing one day and contradict himself the next. It's almost impossible to separate fact from fiction with him.
Right.
There's this one quote from Sturgis that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
He said, "It was a conspiracy, but not the one they're looking for."
Talk about cryptic. It's like he was dangling the truth in front of us, but then snatching it away.
Right.
It makes me wonder if he was deliberately trying to mislead investigators, or if he was just playing some kind of mind game.
Sturgis was a complex character, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Fonzie seemed particularly interested in his relationship with a shadowy figure known only as the German.
Yeah.
The German.
Yeah, Fonzie's sources indicated that the German was an arms dealer with connections to various intelligence agencies.
So we're talking about a guy who moves in the shadows, deals in weapons, and has ties to spies. Sounds like something straight out of a James Bond movie.
And just like in a spy movie, there are layers upon layers of intrigue.
Right.
Sturgis claimed to have worked with the German on a number of covert operations.
Okay.
And some believe the German may have even played a role in supplying weapons or logistical support for the JFK assassination.
It's starting to feel like everyone in this story is playing a double game.
Yeah, it's a tangled web.
And then there's this group called Cellula Phantasma.
Cellula Phantasma.
Yeah, which Sturgis claimed was just involved in a leaflet dropping mission.
Okay.
But Fonzie seems to think there might be more to it.
What is Celila Phantasma anyway?
Celila Phantasma means phantom cell. It's
Oh.
a perfect example of how murky this whole story gets. Sturgis claimed they were just spreading propaganda, but Fonzie suspected their activities might have been far more nefarious.
Like what?
It's like trying to catch smoke.
Right.
You see it, but the moment you try to grasp it, it disappears.
It's mind-boggling to think that these clandestine groups might have been operating right under everyone's noses.
And then we have Mitch Werbel,
Mitch Werbel.
another fascinating character in this tangled web.
What about him?
He was a weapons expert with connections to the CIA.
Okay.
Fonzie even mentions that Werbel claimed to have received a call from Jack Ruby.
Jack Ruby, the man who killed Oswald.
That's the one.
Wow.
Werbel is another piece of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
His expertise in weapons and his ties to intelligence agencies make him a person of interest.
Right.
And that alleged call from Ruby, if true, could link Werbel directly to the events surrounding Oswald's murder.
It's like every step we take forward, we uncover 10 more questions.
Right.
And it's not just the individuals involved, it's the systems and institutions they represent.
Fonzie's research also led him to U.S. Customs records, which he believed could shed light on the JFK assassination.
Oh, how so?
He thought those records might contain names of people involved in smuggling weapons or violating neutrality laws in the lead-up to the assassination.
Interesting.
Fonzie saw them as a potential gold mine of information that could help connect the dots and identify key players in the conspiracy.
Like trying to map out a labyrinth, each corridor leading to another twist and turn.
It's amazing how Fonzie was able to weave together so much information from so many different sources.
It is.
It's like he was piecing together a giant jigsaw puzzle, but with some of the pieces still missing.
Yeah.
Where do we even go from here? It's like we've been dropped right into the middle of a spy novel, but this is real life.
Right.
All these shadowy figures, whisters of conspiracies, and layers of secrets. Fonzie's work, it feels less like an investigation and more like an archaeological dig,
I like that.
uncovering hidden truths buried under decades of misinformation.
And that's the thing with a case like this. We may never have all the pieces, but by carefully examining the ones we do have, we can start to see the bigger picture emerge.
Okay.
What Fonzie does so well, I think,
Yes.
is he provides us with a roadmap, highlighting key connections and raising questions that need more investigation.
Speaking of questions,
Yeah.
Fonzie's deep dive seems to point to a disturbing possibility that elements within the U.S. government might have been involved in covering up the truth about JFK's assassination.
Yeah.
It's like something out of a political thriller, the idea that those in power could manipulate events and control the narrative.
It's definitely unsettling.
If we take a step back and look at the broader historical context,
Yeah.
we see a pattern of potential suppression and manipulation of information, right? We talked about the Lincoln assassination and how evidence might have been suppressed there as well.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
This raises a crucial question. Who controls the narrative?
Exactly.
And how easily does the official story become the accepted truth? It makes you wonder about all the information we accept as fact
It really does.
and how much of it might be shaped by hidden agendas or those in power. It's a bit unsettling to realize that we might not have the full story, even about events that happened decades ago.
It is, yeah.
This whole deep dive has been an eye-opener, to say the least.
It really has.
So what stood out to you the most from all of this?
Let me think.
Was it the mystery man in the Moorman photo, the psychology of denial, or the tangled web of connections Fonzie uncovered? What resonated with you?
I think for me, it's the recurring theme of suppressed information and the struggle to uncover the truth.
Right.
It reminds us that history is not always a straightforward narrative,
Yeah.
and that there are often hidden layers waiting to be discovered.
It's like we're constantly drinking from those waters of knowledge,
Right.
trying to discern what's real and what's been fabricated.
Exactly.
And maybe the most important lesson here is to develop a critical eye, to question everything, and to never stop searching for the truth.
Absolutely. And as you continue exploring the source material, keep those questions in mind.
Okay.
What might those waters of knowledge look like in today's world? What information is being presented to us, and what might be hidden from view? This deep dive is just the beginning of your exploration.
It's a journey worth taking, that's for sure. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the JFK assassination, remember, the truth is out there, but sometimes it takes a bit of digging to find it.
It does.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.